Okay. My name is Janice Bowen, and I am a Unitarian. I have been a Unitarian since the early 1970s, and I attend the Unitarian Fellowship of Peterborough at this point in time. And I'll be 82 in a couple of weeks. So I think of myself as an elder. Um, um, and I understand that the use of that term, that the Indigenous people use that term and use it with respect. And I like that, and I think it's appropriate. And that's why I think of myself as an elder. They've provided that leadership for me in terms of that thinking that way. Um, we have an Indigenous Allies Working Group at the Fellowship, and so we've been in touch with local Indigenous people, and that's where that information came to us, or came to me anyway. Um, So I do think of myself as an elder, and I promote that, and I promote that for other people as well. I'm not sure at this point in time that I've felt not included or oppressed because I am an elder, but I'm very cognizant of the fact that at my age and with my health, what I'm looking forward to is the possibility of needing more supports, whether in the home or someplace else. And what's happening in long-term care is just um, frightening. That's a difficulty for me. I was a registered nurse. I worked all my career in the healthcare system, and I'm really feeling disillusioned and discouraged with what's happening within that system. I guess I don't see it in terms of being oppressed so much as being invisible. All of a sudden, I've become invisible. I'm there, um, but I'm not there. Uh, Younger people become more identified as being more important, or the focus needs to be on younger people for a lot of very good reasons. But I think we need to expand that and make everybody the focus in some way or other. It happens, and you don't notice it happening until suddenly you realize, hello, here I am. And you're wondering what took place, what did I miss? When it comes to ageism within the Unitarian family, I think we're taking a misdirection. That's one of the reasons why I did send some emails to the staff at the CUC. The focus has been for the last quite a few years on youth, children, youth, and people 35 and under. And while I understand that, I think it's a bit of a misdirection. And when I did I asked the CUC, I told the CUC in one of my emails that I personally, because of my age, would like some information or some articles in the online newsletter about what other congregations are doing in terms of programming for elders, for the elders in their congregations. Um, but sort of the gist of the conversation I got back was that the policy set by the CUC board was to focus on those 35 and younger, especially youth and children, because they were concerned about losing members, losing congregations. Congregations were getting smaller. And while I understand that, I personally feel it's misguided, that you really need to focus on the whole age group. And I think that way because, as I mentioned, if you pay attention, you know that young adults are not coming back into the churches. They're staying away. Why are they staying away? I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of personal reasons, but I just think that if we broadened our policies and our focus and really work harder to bring, especially the youth and young adults, into the congregation more, and so that we all felt like we were part of the larger fellowship as opposed to small groups within a larger fellowship, that we would perhaps be doing a better job of building our congregations. And I can't help but wonder when I think about that, why would anybody join a group where when you watch what's happening within the group, you see that as people get older, they become less relevant within the group. Why would you join that group? I wouldn't want to join a group like that. I would like to join a group where everybody is relevant, everybody is visible. And that's why I think we're making a bit of a mistake in our total focus on a particular age group.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in conversation with youth and young adults about why they don't want to stick around.
Mhm.
And if you're open, I can tell you. It's because largely because the culture changes so quickly that they don't feel like the Unitarian Universalism that they love and know exists when they, as soon as they bridge out, because the culture is it's more performative, it's less co-created, there's more meetings, there's less spontaneous intentional spaces, the way worship is done is very different, like all of these things, it's like two different worlds. And so they feel like they can't see themselves in the culture. And so while they bring their UUism with them into the world, they have a very hard time wanting to be in maybe a congregational setting, because everything is done in a way that seems to them to be moving away from the direction that feels progressive enough for them. Which I think is a common thing between youth and elders, like that generation gap anyway. It's the progressiveness versus more, I don't know, I think the older we get, the more we like the way it's going, kind of thing.
This is the way we've done it, and we've done it this way.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
change.
And I think all of these things are very relevant. I think what you're saying is true. Like there has to be a way to value the cultures, but like there's definitely a drop off, like there's a gap somewhere. And how do we make those spaces not just a way for us to say we want you to come into our culture, but how do we co-create a culture that is exciting for everybody to be around? I don't know what the answer is to that, but this is what I've been noticing anyway. This is what's been coming up. And I'm wondering if you have anything that comes to mind for you.
No, I don't have any big answers to that. I understand that as an issue. But I think speaking as an older person, if I don't have any contact with this age group, then I don't know where they're coming from and what they think and what they like and what they don't like. And so I'm kind of left out of being able to do anything about it. I don't speak the right language, but so somehow for me, we really have to look at our programming, our structure, and we have to make time for more contact so we can talk to each other honestly, and so that we can understand that, yeah, I don't see the world the same as you do because I have a different history, but that's okay. It's still the same world. And we don't have that opportunity. And I think that's what I regret. And I still do believe that the policies we're setting aren't helping to bridge that. So I'd like us to change that if we can, if we will, if we're willing to, you know. Otherwise, your relationship is alienated. There isn't any. It's an alienated type of relationship where you don't understand each other, and we don't necessarily speak the same language. But we had 3 children, and I mean, they grew up through that age group, and we managed to be able to communicate. So we had the ability at that time to speak similar language anyway, and understand or not understand each other and know that we were or weren't. So the capacity to do that is there. We just have to restructure somehow so that we're making putting people together in a different way. I would say for people my age or even 20 years younger, I think the area of growth is for us to understand that we don't have all the answers. And even though we've lived a long life, we don't have all the answers and we don't know everything. And sometimes we need to sit down and listen to what other people are saying, especially the younger people and what they're saying. And if we don't understand what they're saying, we need to be comfortable enough to say, I'm not understanding. Can you explain it to me in a different way? So I think from my age perspective, that would be a major area of growth, to just accept that we don't have all the answers. I know that when we were meeting in person at Peterborough Fellowship, the youth would have a youth service once a year. And a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of older people didn't like it. It was different, and wouldn't go. And I often wondered if rather than having a separate youth service, we had a combined service where elders and adults and a whole age group put on the service, rather than, again, we're separating people out. And so trying to do what we say we want to have happen in terms of being together as a congregation, and yet putting into practice things that separate each other out into ages. We're all separated into ages. And what do we get? We get ageism. One of the most eye-opening comments that was made to me by a local Indigenous elder when we were having a meeting was when she told me very clearly that I too had been colonized. And that, I never thought of it that way before, that my way of thinking and seeing the world was part of the colonization. I found that very, very eye-opening, and has helped me a lot just to understand that part. Being one of the things I've always liked about Unitarianism itself is the ability and the willingness to disagree, but to continue to walk together in covenant, even though we disagree. And I do think we need to talk about that more, because I think sometimes it's taken for granted that we're doing that or we're going to do that, and yet we aren't.